Hey, and good morning, and welcome to the Career Hive. I think this is podcast number 15, and we have once again David Wallace. Who, what can I say? I think we said it all in the last podcast. Thank you very much, David, for coming along and kind of really helping us at this critical moment in kind of that education journey. If that's right, yeah, in that education journey. So it was GCSE results on Thursday. We have loads of celebrations. We have loads of questions. There's loads of concerns. What does this mean for me? What do I do next? I've got them. I haven't got them. I haven't quite got the mix I wanted. So hopefully we'll be able to debunk some of those kind of questions and kind of help with those, what to do next. So just kind of give us an idea of how does it sort of set up in a school environment on GCSE results day and what sort of goes on and etc.
Yeah. I think if you're looking at a school situation with a sixth form, they have pretty fixed ideas about the grades required to get in and the grades required to do certain subjects and that kind of stuff. And you won't find a great deal of flexibility around that. Okay. I think a really important point to make at this point is just what a step up A levels are from GCSE. And so schools, they're very careful. They don't want to set young people up to fail. So the demands they place on their students to come into sixth form, they're pretty solid. So, okay. However, they do need to fill their places and they need to fill their courses. So I think if you're a student, perhaps one of the most common ones that I come across are those students who've just fallen short of the demands of a school sixth form. They really want to do A levels. They've chosen their 3 subjects on the application, and then maybe they've fallen short on 1 or 2 subjects. So I think at that situation, the school is looking at the student and they want to know, well, will this student succeed? So maybe the approach from the student and the school might be is to perhaps offer you something different. So you may have, for example, applied for a maths A level. Now that's a tough subject. There's no doubt about that. If you speak to any A-level maths student, they'll tell you it's tough. So the school might have a certain grade requirement. Perhaps you need to have a 6 or a 7, or some of them are 8s. Yeah. Now, if you didn't achieve that, but you did in your other subjects, perhaps it's just a case of changing one of your A-levels. And most schools will be very open to the idea, if they have spaces, to you shifting one of your choices. So I think the first thing to say is if you haven't quite got the grades, is the schools want to fill their places and they want you to choose the right subjects. So get onto the phone, get into the school, have a conversation around, is there something else I can do if I can't do the subject that I've just fallen short of? And yeah, that your love of maths may be because you want to go and do computer science at university or something, but you'll find there are other ways of doing that. Yeah. And so if you can find another subject you could study, those doors might still be open, because there's no point in creeping into an A level and leaving with an E after 2 years of hard work. That's really not going to open very many doors for you at that stage. If you could have done a different subject and gone and got yourself a B or a C or something, that's a much better approach, and the school will be happy with that. Yeah. Because all the school wants is to see the student succeed. Yeah. So the first thing is to say, schools know what they want, but talk to them if you're a student or a parent who's not quite there, and listen to their advice about what might be open to you before you consider any other routes.
Oh, fantastic. And what happens, what if you've got, so in terms of the subject choosing, so I'm guessing, you kind of go back, is it your first week you're choosing? Is it between now and when they go back that they're choosing? When does that sort of process come into play?
Yeah, I mean, the schools I've worked in, the vast majority of them will give you 2 or 3 weeks to try a subject. Okay. You really don't want to leave it much longer than the end of September to try and change a subject, because you're well into the course, and it's sixth form is less than 2 years when you take out the holidays and the early exams in year 13. So I think if you can have those detailed conversations with the school now, you can be in a good position to start something in next week where you think, okay, I'm comfortable this is. But the vast majority of the schools, again, if you just think, this is not what I thought, then schools will be flexible. They'll give you that opportunity to switch. So maybe whilst you're doing your research, maybe you settle on the idea that, okay, yeah, psychology sounds a great subject. If it doesn't quite work with me, maybe I could switch to sociology instead, or something like that. Or maybe the art and design, you switch out to photography because that's where your skills lie. But not all schools will do that. So again, that's the conversation to have with them and just say, if I really don't suit this, is there an opportunity in the first 2 or 3 weeks to switch? And the vast majority will say yes, because again, they want the student to succeed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you made a quite interesting point around, sort of trying to choose subjects that you're going to excel in, rather than spending 2 years looking for what I call those aspirational studies, where you think, well, I love maths, but actually, is my maths at that kind of level that allows me to come away with a decent grade? I mean, what other piece of advice would you give? So, sort of 3 pieces of advice you'd give to someone, a young student who's looking at that, going, okay, I've admitted I'm not really good at maths. So what else do I need to choose? Do I need, okay, how do I put it? When they do their options, you talk about choosing, sciences, humanities, languages, etc. So you have a nice little mix. I'm assuming that's the same with A levels, or is it completely different based on the fact that you've only got best part of a year and a bit, if you want to say that, in terms of, contact time, etc.
It is more difficult because obviously when you're picking your GCSEs, you've got a set of core subjects that you have to do. You're going to have to do your maths and your English and your sciences and things. When it comes to A levels, it's your choice. I think around that, there are certain subjects that you must do if you have an ambition to go to a top university and study a certain subject.
Yeah.
So, if you want to go into medicine and study to be a doctor, you're going to need chemistry and biology, or a vet for that matter. If you're going to go into the computer sciences, you're going to need a maths or a computer science qualification to get into the... Now, having said that, there are, for most other subjects, not a great many fixed requirements. There are plenty of universities you can go to university and do a history degree without a history A level.
Okay.
So there's only certain subjects that are really required if university is the route you want to go down. If you want to go down another route, a top apprenticeship, for example, it is very rare to see A-level requirements attached to those kind of routes. The ones I've seen, sometimes you see the heavy finance apprenticeships at the higher and degree level. They may want you to have a maths, sometimes a science will cover that. But for the vast majority of top level apprenticeships, they don't have subject requirements. They may have grade requirements, but not subject requirements. So I think the first step in thinking, well, what do I do, is if you have a fixed ambition for a career or a university course, is to be sure that you're picking the right subjects. But actually, that's not very many routes that require absolutely fixed routes. Secondly, is to play to your strengths of the things that you'll do well in, so that the grades you get at the end of it are better. I mean, I know from my background and also yours as a recruiter, if a CV turns up with a bunch of top grades on it, it just catches your eye.
Yeah.
It's not often you look at what did they study. It's just a case of, okay, if you go and get an A star in art, boy, that's tough. You are really talented, because that's a diff thing to do. Or drama, or music, or whatever subject you choose to do. And actually, if you could do that in a subject that you love and you have a natural talent for, that may open many more doors than saying, oh, I must do English, or I must do maths, or a science. And you end up with a poor grade.
Yeah.
And I think having that open mind as to where you go with these A levels, spreading the type of A level you do is not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because it keeps more of those doors open when you get to the next stage. So if you can show yourself as a creative thinker, that's going to attract an interest from a lot of routes in university or otherwise, because it just shows that you've got a whole breadth of skills that are useful to universities and employers.
Yeah, yeah. And the good thing about once you go into apprenticeships, they're mainly recruiting on potential, right? They know at this age in early careers, it's all about potential. But those kind of grades and results give me an idea of, the kind of potential that you have. Where's your passion? When you see, I know when I interview a lot of people, even later on in their careers, and they've got an A star in art, and you kind of go, oh wow, and funnily enough, they'll talk about their passion within that particular subject anyway, because it's something that they really enjoyed. So let's kind of flip around. So I'm a student. My head was like, yes, I want to go and do A levels, but now I've kind of got my grades. They're not, they're kind of good, but I'm not sure. They're brilliant, but I'm not sure if I want to put in that hard work, because it is a big difference, right, between jumping from GCSE, from GCSEs into A levels, because I guess less contact time, but you've more self-directed learning, and you've got to put in the extra hours in between that. So, is there a case of I've got apprenticeship routes, I've got 6 college routes. I mean, how would you sort of advise a young person in that kind of scenario where they're going, I've got the grades, but I'm just not sure A levels are for me at school potentially?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the most common form that students have come in the past to me with that is that they have one subject that they really love.
Yeah.
And they've decided that the A-level route is what they want to do. And then it suddenly dawns them, well, I've just picked the other 2 subjects pretty much at random.
Yeah.
And at that point, you need to stop and have a really good think, because if you went down the college route and picked up the one subject in the thing that you have the passion for, as you mentioned, coming out of a college with a triple distinction in the one subject, which is the same as a 3A grade A levels at level 3, will really help you and open doors. Rather than, let's say it was art and design, you do art A level, and 2 other random ones that you kind of think might be interesting. You end up with AEE simply because you weren't interested in the other 2. Compare that to going to a college and doing a triple diploma. You could get 3 fantastic grades, and university routes are open to you then. You could go and do those things. And when you look at the way that those qualifications are delivered, applied sciences, engineering, business, public services, sport, travel and tourism, if you've got a real passion for one of those areas of kind of work, that might be a much, much better route for you.
Yeah.
Also, the college atmosphere is very different. You're going to be in your t-shirt. You're not going to be turning up in a suit. Unless you do something like applied sort of uniform services or something. And it just might be that it gives you the opportunity. If you're a sports fan, those kind of BTECs will give you everything from the psychology to the sociology to the business of sport to the training. It gives you the whole rounded view of what sport really means.
Okay.
And that might be just something that gets you much, much better grades. Obviously, it's narrowing you down.
Yeah.
If you just go and study sport, then at the 18 you're coming out with a great qualification. But it is a narrower field. The other thing to look at, and I was delighted to see this summer the first graduates out of T levels.
Oh yeah, I heard of those. Yeah. I was asked my next question.
They seem to have done extremely well. Yeah, and I just think they're new, and so there was a concern about will these things work. Yeah. And if anyone's not familiar with them, I would describe them as a kind of reverse apprenticeship, in that you spend 4 days at college and 1 day at work, rather than perhaps the other way around. And if you're sure on a career going forward in the construction industry, the design industries, there's all sorts of different routes down that, then finding one of those in your local college, particularly if you're the kind of person that's already got a Saturday job and you're ready for the workforce, then a level 3 T level might be a much, much more engaging and interesting route than creeping through A levels or even the BTECs, which are still around at the moment.
Yeah. That's quite interesting, because I'm the same as you, where I saw the T levels coming in, and I think on paper, I thought they looked really exciting, and they've got really good potential to make a difference, whether it's that prep before you go in to do a full apprenticeship, or whether it's just that sort of, you've got, we know those students whereby they kind of enjoy school, but they need that, being in industry as well will be a really good way of keeping them engaged. So I was really fascinated to see how they would kind of land. And like you said, you sort of wait for the first year, and I think the feedback and the results and everything else has been really, really positive. And hopefully, we can really start to push, especially in in sectors like construction, where they don't always have
Yeah.
the highest profile.
Desperate for stuff.
Yeah, exactly, and the whole brand of construction. Every parent thinks it's a hard hat, it's cold, it's wet, it's windy. What's that all about? When actually there's many other roles, where it's got nothing to do with that at all. Yes, they might wear a hard hat because they're going on site, but actually, some of them will spend. That's once in a while. So that's quite fascinating in terms of the T level piece. So let's go back to our GCSE students. What can they expect in that transition now from GCSEs to A level? So I've sort of made my decision that I definitely want to. I've picked up my subjects. I've moved away from my aspirational maths because I've been told that's the advice around people going, you should do maths because you're good at it. To actually the reality that I'm good at it but not good enough. But what can they expect? How does that sort of transition work? And what's the huge differences between the two?
Yeah. I think the first step is you do have to hit the ground running.
Okay.
When I look at students who are really successful at A level, they are the ones who bust into the sixth form and get on with it.
Okay.
Of course, GCSE students should be celebrating their success. They should have had a great long summer, and especially the things they've been through in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But from next week, you really do need to switch back on. I heard a deputy head explaining to a group of prospective sixth formers that if you did everything that the A-level teacher suggested, you could get a good solid C.
Okay.
If you want more than that, it comes from you.
Yeah.
Which is unlike GCSE. GCSE, they will teach you everything you need to know. At A level, you have to engage more. You have to read around the subject. You have to do a bit more work in your own time. And I think if you look at successful students, they pick that up very quickly.
Yeah.
They don't coast up to October thinking, I'm in the sixth form, look at me, aren't I clever? Actually, they're going, okay, this is tough. And they're reading, they're researching, they're getting on the net, they're finding out what their subject's like. So that as they step into that classroom and the teacher is giving you the structure, you are then taking that away and building on it yourself. So when you come back to do the testing or the essay, whatever subject you're doing, you have more to add, and you can get more sort of points in the testing for the stuff that you know. So I think the schools will support you for that. All the schools I've worked in the first couple of weeks had prepping for A-level sessions. I mean, some students may have done these back in July after their exams, but there'll be more of that as well. The first couple of lessons you'll have at A-level will be around, this is how it's different, this is what you need to do, here's your reading list, here's some great websites to research on. Good teaching staff will make sure that right from the beginning you are aware of this is different. And if you pick the right subjects that you love, that won't feel like a chore.
Yeah.
Because actually going away and just learning a lot more about what it is you're doing at A-level, you've got the space. Probably didn't have that at GCSE because you were doing 9, 10, 11, 12 subjects. Yeah. Now you're doing 3, and there's no point in doing more than 3 unless you're doing an extra maths on top of your maths. Yeah. You've got that time. You've got that time to fill it with more learning and more interest. And then you will find perhaps the one subject you really, really love that you then want to take on beyond A-level. But a good school will make sure you're prepared for that.
Okay.
And I think the other good thing that good students do is they ask a lot of questions. They get into the head of sixth form. They get into the careers person in the sixth form. They talk to the teachers of each subject and say, what do I need to be doing? What extra can I do?
Yeah.
They step up to this new level of being 17, heading on to 18. And what that means is that they're just a step ahead of everybody else. And when it comes to looking for apprenticeships or applying to university, they've already got that ball rolling.
Yeah.
And they're not suddenly reaching December and going, I want to go to university.
Yeah.
And they discover they've got a week and a half to do an application. Start the process early so that you get into the rhythm of A-level because it's tough.
Yeah. You answered a good question for me because the next question I was going to ask is, just like, we do your options and then you sort of, you know what you're going to study and then, we talk of different things at year 10 and etc. as you move towards your GCSEs. My question was going to be the same thing about A levels because I've had interesting conversations where, I've got A level students who say to us, we didn't know about opportunities in relation to apprenticeships and what will they look like and where we can get those. Oh, I wasn't sure about, when I applied for my, completed my UCAS application, I was looking at this university, this subject, but actually that's not what I want to do now. Is there anything that they can do, especially, I guess, on the university question, which, between now and when they need to kind of complete their UCAS applications, are there steps they can take to make sure that they're choosing the right course? And if I'm looking at a degree apprenticeship, what is it that I need to start to think about? And is there anything I can do to be in a position so that by
From the straight university degree point of view, the open days and open events will be starting. It's kind of most of them start from October onwards.
Okay.
Every school will give you the day out to go and visit these places, and I'd thoroughly recommend you go and see several. Now, if you're unsure as to which university to go to, then there's two pieces of advice. One is it's going to depend largely on your grades. Okay. So having a reasonable idea of what your expectations are, again, talk to your head of sixth form perhaps, is okay, get a feel for, okay, if I work my socks off for a year and a half, what's the potential for me going forward? Then get on the UCAS website and find out which universities you can get into with those grades. And then second thing is, having narrowed down, because I'm really sorry, if your potential is 3 Cs, Oxford and Cambridge, it's tough. So once you've narrowed down grade-wise where the potential is, then have a look at the different type of university. So you have campus universities where pretty much everything is surrounded by a big wall. So if you go to, I don't know, Bath or Sussex, they sit at the top end of a town. They're surrounded by, and inside the walls there is all the sports facilities and a bank and a supermarket and all sorts of things, and do that.
Yeah.
Then go and have a look at a city university. Go and look at Manchester or Leeds or something like that, where it's spread out across. Some suit some people, some suit others. And I think by going to see maybe 3 or 4 that you could potentially get into, but look different, a campus university or perhaps a city university, then you will get a feel for, okay, I feel more at home in this or more at home in that. And then when you start to do your web research and watch a few video presentations or however else you might do it, you'll go, okay, I recognise what that is. That's a bit like Sussex, or that's a bit like Manchester, or it's a bit like Durham, or whatever you choose. The apprenticeship routes, particularly the degree apprenticeships, is much tougher. My biggest advice would be there is no one place you are going to find opportunities. Google find an apprenticeship, you'll find the government website, which in theory lists all the opportunities. But many of the bigger companies are recruiting from their own websites. So if you want to work for a big law firm, a finance company, an IT company, Jaguar Land Rover, whoever it might be, you need probably from September to start looking on their websites. They will start to give you information about what they offer, and then they'll give you the window of application. Some of those of the biggest companies work around UCAS deadlines, so some of those by January will have closed. So you need to do your research, you need to find out everything about them. Others much broader. I've had an email from a student last week after A-level results who'd just been told that there was an opportunity to apply for to start very shortly. So he's been hanging on that company. They didn't appear back in the winter. Now they've made a decision they want to hire a few people, and because he had questions with them, because he asked them about their information, they've said, okay, we are now open for applications. So I think, being on your toes about that and not missing a deadline, there's nothing more gutting than having a company in mind and then going on their website in January and discovering the window's closed.
Yeah.
I'd say as soon as you get into school, college, wherever you are in September, October, you know, get your app out with your calendar on it.
Yeah.
And start to put some dates in there. Not the end date, because it's too late. You don't want to open your phone and go, closed. You want it 6 weeks before that going, don't forget, XYZ company's closing is in 6 weeks. So you have got time to do your sort of reconnaissance of the company, get on LinkedIn, find out a bit more about them, look in the news, find out what this company is and what they're doing, so that you're well prepared and get in before the end date. It never looks good to hit the send button on the closing day. Yeah. Get in there a few weeks before that, so that you're just, people know how serious you are about your application. Yeah. Having said that, don't send it on the day it opens either.
Yeah, true.
Because that suggests that perhaps you haven't done quite as much research as you should have done. If there's a 6 weeks window of application, send it off in the middle.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, it's a conversation we're having with employers who are looking to bring early career talent and using Future Might You Do It. We're sort of saying, listen, don't, especially when it comes to degree apprenticeships, forget about the fixed intake date, because I think that it means that you miss out some really, really good talent, because you and I have talked about this many times about, I see that you'd have seen it as young people kind of start school in year 7 and how they evolve and develop and all that type of stuff. I think that 2 years between GCSE, when you do your GCSEs at 16, which when you leave your A levels at 18, I mean, the growth is probably, to me, when I look at it from bringing talent in, it's probably the biggest growth curve any young person kind of goes through, and the options become bigger. And so therefore, if a company really wants to get their quotas in regards to apprenticeships and really access some really exciting talent and sort of move it away from university and into those organizations, there's got to be a bit of flex on how they go about it, because I think, that whole sort of fixed piece is really hard.
Young people, I should say that, they are different people by the time they're 18.
Yeah.
And I just think employers do need to recognise that what the 17-year-old thinks is a good route going forward is maybe not the one picking up their A-level results. Yeah, and I think, certainly, I think employers just need to be aware of that they need to be more flexible. It's a very different situation from employing an experienced worker. Experienced worker knows what to expect, or should do, and knows how to do an application, knows all those things, and knows what the world of work looks like. It's very different with a young person stepping into the world of work. And I think if an employer is more flexible around that, they're going to be better caliber of person. One enlightened company did, having reached one of my ex-students who made an inquiry, offered them a 2-week work experience during the Easter holidays, just to keep them warm, just to say, look, we haven't got anything, but come and spend 2 weeks with us. And she is now on a degree apprenticeship with them. They realised that the timing wasn't right for her or them, but they really liked her. And that 2 weeks absolutely cemented the deal. And she joined them 2 years ago and is doing extremely well. And I just think, it's from the young person's point of view about finding out exactly what's involved, and from the employer's point of view of who is this young person, what are they like. It's very easy as you get older to forget what it's like to be 17, 18 years old.
Yeah, it is.
Help them. If you want the best, help them,
Yeah. And I guess also, I mean, another thing that I was saying to a couple of organizations we're working with, going back to that date piece, I said, look, if you're engaging with the students as early as you possibly can, what also happens is, even if you really, really like them, and they decide, actually, I'm going to go to university, because as I tried to explain to one particular client, there's a lot of noise and a lot of pressure, and around the decision. I've done my A levels, I've done really well. I know we're talking about GCSEs, but I think this starts across the next 2 years are critical. Where you sort of have that conversation where people go, you be the first one to go to university. I remember, we lost a couple of those, didn't we, when they decided they wanted to go for the lifestyle perspective. But then there's also that cut-off point that happens at the end of the end of October where they kind of go and do Freshers Week, and Freshers Week finishes, and they come back and they go, "Oh, this is not for me." I want to come back. So if companies engage, let's engage with this talent now. They're starting to make those GCSE transition to A levels. I guess approach your local school, try and get involved in anything you can do. Give the local careers team advice on the apprenticeships you have in your business, because like you said, there isn't a fixed site that says this is where all the world's apprenticeships in the UK is. You kind of use the website. Yeah. So
unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll solve that problem one day.
Yeah, I think the way I would phrase that is that the businesses need a better radar,
like that,
so that the dots appear across the radar. What most businesses are trying to do at the moment is to have like a laser beam. They're trying to find that one student that sits out there that they're looking for. What they need is to reach the GCSE student on the radar and do it from there.
Hi, I think we just lost David again due to kind of Wi-Fi issues with him being based in France at the moment. But I love that last kind of comment where he talked about the radar and kind of having these massive dots on your screen, and then how you connect those. And if you look at what we're trying to do, the Career High, if you look at what we're trying to do, Future Match, is exactly that. Is how do we help organizations connect those particular dots in terms of bringing that early career talent into their organization. So, yes, we're looking to recruit graduates. Yes, we're looking to recruit apprentices. How do we go about connecting those dots? Because that is exactly what the whole process looks like. It's literally that. Well, we're here today. We've got this talent pool coming through here. They've got the GCSEs we're looking for. They're interested in A levels, but they're not 100% sure they want to do that. Well, that's one group. There's a group that knows exactly what they want to do, but actually, guess what? They get to A levels and they decide, actually, I want to change what I'm doing, because that isn't the pathway I want to go. Again, that's another point for organizations to get involved with that. And as I said, it's all about connecting those dots. The final dot you've got is a group who decide, yes, I want to do university. They've had this kind of what looks like from outside a clarity of journey, but actually what's happened is that they've sort of had a point where they've got a break, where they've changed their mind or something's coming to play. And because of that, they basically look at this and go, actually, I thought I wanted to go to uni. I've sort of done 6 weeks at uni. Isn't what I want to do anymore. I want to go back into the world of work. I want to do a degree apprenticeship. Where do I go next? Hopefully, Future Match becomes our door. But in essence, or the Career High, but in essence, that's where the challenge sort of falls into place. So for businesses, let's look at connecting dots. If I'm a young person and I've just done my GCSEs, congratulations, well done. It's a case of now let's choose subjects that are going to enable me to enjoy the next 18 months, probably less than that, but also make sure that they're going to be the ones that are going to come out with the best grades possible. So don't choose the subject based on, I think I'm really good at maths and I want to do computer science, or do maths, but actually I just managed to get through my maths, because that means it's going to be a really hard challenge, really long, sort of 2 years to go about it. So try and pick subjects that you enjoy, that you've excelled in, and what you're doing is taking on that further learning. And the third thing I took out of that, which was really important again, was hit the ground running. This is a big difference between GCSEs to A levels, so you've got to hit the ground running. So get in on your first day, find out as much as you can about the subject you're doing, really listen to what's happening, look at your guided hours, because you're only going to get a minimal amount of contact time. The rest of it's down to what you put in. So you get a certain grade, but if you put more work in, you're going to excel at the same time. So that's really, really important. Applications, whether it's UCAS or there's degree apprenticeships, don't wait for the last date. Try and get these things done before. Do that research. So university, getting out in those open days, which is great now because most universities are back to having those face-to-face open days. It's no longer like it was in the pandemic where you had to virtually and all that type of stuff. So you really didn't get the feel of where you're going. So as Mr. Wallace said, you've got some which are just basically enclosed. You've got some which are spread across the city. So yeah, it's about finding the right university that fits what you want to do. And once again, if you do your research and really get to fit as many as possible, you then know what you want to do. Degree level apprenticeship, look, it's tougher because obviously, I think the process of bringing apprenticeships into schools is something that's evolving and happening slowly. So, my advice is identify the organizations you're interested in, talk to your careers advice, reach out to the likes of Future Match, I know, let us kind of have that conversation with you, look at what you want to do, and let's start to sort of engage with those organizations. I think this is a really big space. I go back to employers, right? This is one of the biggest dots you can start to connect with. It's basically get out there, post your, share your apprenticeship opportunities with schools, locally, colleges, university. Just do your bit to just get what you're looking for out there, and instead of going for that kind of a laser approach there. So I thought those were really, really big kind of highlights. I thought one was interesting, was around subjects. So if you've got the grades, but you're thinking, I only really, 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 really love one subject, I don't, other two I'm not really keen on, then college is a really big option. So you can choose that kind of diploma. You can specialize in that particular subject, and coming away with three triple distinction, as you put it, is actually more beneficial than coming out with one pass and two fails in your A-level results, because again, that kind of shows that keeps those doors open. So I think that was really informative, and I really appreciate David kind of coming in and really kind of talking about what options are available, especially as you move from that GCSE journey into A-levels, and obviously what happens after that going forward. For employers, for parents, for you, the student, just remember that the next 2 years, 16 to 18, as you go through that journey and you transition from GCSEs to A-levels, you're going to go through so many different changes, so many different exciting things are going to come your way, so many different options are going to be thrown at you. And so it's okay, right? It's going to be okay. Don't feel the pressure to make a decision straight away. Use the next 18 months to evolve in your thinking, and just realize that, there is options, right? Whether it's degree apprenticeship, whether it's I go to university, there's loads of options. If you've just got your GCSEs and you're not sure what you want to do, there's T levels coming in. There's so much. I mean, I'm really excited, but I think there's a lot more information about things that come out here. It just comes down to you believing and choosing the option that works best for you. So listen, thank you very, very much for listening to the podcast, and I look forward to the next episode where we'll probably again talk about that transition between A-levels into universities, and we'll just talk a little bit more on careers and how companies can start to support that group, and hopefully we'll have a couple of guests on as well. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye-bye.